Now we've got that gorilla. We've got Larry Fink and the team. A tulip is not divisible. A tulip is not durable. You keep a tulip. I mean, it's at the nut.
It's actually a big milestone, the ETF.
Printing machine is switched on at some point. It's a perfect storm that we're facing. This is probably my second or third cycle. I've never been more bullish than I am right now because of all of these factors that are perfectly aligned.
If you short Bitcoin, you short humanity.
But the more I got exposure to Web3, the more my passion and love and belief system was reinforced in terms of what Bitcoin is.
What would we do right now without Bitcoin?
If your company is not optimizing to include at some point in the near future to either have Bitcoin on your asset balance book or accept Bitcoin as a means of exchange, you are ultimately working towards zero.
So I think AI and all the helpers are really good at this point.
Yeah, good and bad. I mean, did you see the Michael Seyr fake ads that were all over YouTube?
Yes,
it's scary. But
yes.
who honestly are clicking on these ads and thinking that this is an exclusive offer, from Michael Seyr? It's just ridiculous. So at the end of the day, with bulls, even in bears, but I mean, with bulls come a lot of scammers. So you just got to be extremely careful and cautious on what you're clicking and what are you doing? Do your due diligence. It's going to get pretty scary. I grow paranoid. I mean, I'm getting quite paranoid as it is. So anytime someone sends me a URL, I always malware check it and make sure that everything's kosher and above board. So yeah, I think there's a lesson to be learned. It's definitely not my first bull. So I know the scammers are coming.
I have a story. My small cousin, he follows me on Twitter. And he sometimes likes a lot of stuff from me really quickly. Like he's like one day he's in the 1 or 2 hours and he likes like the last 2 weeks of posts. Like he likes then 50 posts of mine in one go. And he got contacted by a scammer. Like this was the same profile as mine. It was just like a different writing in the handle. And I speak, like I'm Austrian. I always speak with him in German. And the scammer wrote him in English because my content is English. So, and this did not threw the cousin off. And he wrote with him like, I think 6 messages. Now, only after 6, he is really small, like he's like 14 or something. Only after 6 messages, he wrote me, "Hey, do you know that that's me on Twitter?" And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he sends me the screenshots and they're really, really, really good. Like they are going slowly in. They're like, they're not like giving some weird offer at the beginning. They are trying to have a connection with the follower. And the follower, I think how it works, like they're seeing, how are they liking a lot of the stuff? And then if they're liking a lot of the stuff and they're following, then they're following it and messaging him in, and they're hoping that in the rush of the moment, they just can get through to him and build a connection, and they don't even question if this is the real one. So
there is a slight compliment in that though. Like, you kind of made it into Twitter space when you get cloned. So I haven't yet. I don't think I've got any, fake accounts out there for myself. But yeah, I think, you like, 14 is an age where obviously I'm glad to hear that you kind of you have orange pilled him, right? So he's well aware of what the importance that Bitcoin has to play. But the sooner they learn these lessons on the potential issues and risks that comes with self custody and all these other things that we are eventually going to take more and more control over, the onus is on you to protect yourself. And I think at some point in the near future, I'm most likely going to, reduce my digital footprint, down to a bare minimum, because it is going to get very difficult. And as technology, like we were talking about AI, as technology gets more advanced, it's going to become a massive issue. And I fear, obviously, and we can talk about the ETF. I know you've got a little bit of a position on the ETF, but I fear, like, the older generations, they are sitting ducks, metaphorically speaking. They sit there, they are heavily reliant on, very old, outdated ways of interacting with their banking, fraternities. I mean, I'm talking from personal experience. I've got fairly older parents. They're in their, my father's in his 80s, and he gets calls sometimes from, so-called bankers, and they are asking him for, really personal information. He panics, like what, your cousin, thankfully didn't do. They put a certain amount of pressure in it, and they just, dispense all this really personal, information, which is dangerous. But I think it's, as we get into a more, like I said, self-custodial environment, the onus is really up to you, because you've got no middleman to lean on and say, hey, what's up? There's no insurance provider in the middle protecting you from, the loss and theft and all that kind of stuff. So you just need to be highly vigilant, going into what I think is going to be a very exciting next few years and beyond.
Will all the people do self custody? Will be
No.
the future where, because I think a lot about that. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, the masses, will still have Bitcoin on some exchanges, on some trading
Yeah.
platform, banking platform, on
Mm.
maybe even not layer 1, like layer 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm. Yeah.
And only a small percentages have really Bitcoin on chain. Is that also your thought?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is why there is this massive opportunity with the ETFs, right? So, to move forward, which is a principle of physics, to move forward, you need to leave something behind. And I think these ETFs are an ideal opportunity for the majority of the mass adoption out there to get involved and have some exposure to Bitcoin. I think there will be, eventually we're going to get into an environment where there might be a healthy, split between the custodial management responsibilities, but the large majority are not, right? And I think that's absolutely fine for the medium short term. And I think, why I'm excited about these ETFs is not necessarily, it's not about the technology. It's not necessarily a movement towards, a better consensus on the protocol. It is about mass adoption and about, awareness of the importance of what this means. I think a lot of ETF, especially younger ETF investors, they will start to learn more about the importance of what, for me, I believe is the single most important technological and societal, movement that we've had in the last couple of years. I think those younger investors are going to start going, okay, well, what is this all about? And they're going to go down the rabbit hole. Like we've all gone down the rabbit hole. Like, I'm talking to a fellow Bitcoiner. So, once they go down that journey, they will eventually get and buy direct. They'll buy and own and store their own coins. So, this is a vital stepping stone into that, greater adoption. And I think we're now going to, regardless of the quality of the ads that have come out, around the ETFs, which are, in my opinion, appalling. But anyway, we're now being given this massive opportunity to market Bitcoin to a global audience. And it's obviously the first stab of these ads. I don't know how authentic some of these ads are. I think that maybe, done off. I mean, some of these ads look like they've been done off PowerPoint. But it's a step in the right direction, regardless of the quality, right? So, like, you have to sometimes just make sure that you're moving forward. And I applied that to my own career. Regardless if you make mistakes along the way, as long as you're learning, you're moving forward, you're progressing. And this, for me, is a vital step into a mass, level of exposure that we haven't had in the last, 15 years or so. This is now a significant movement towards being taken seriously at the financial dinner table. BlackRock is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, companies in the world. They are, the flight to quality is on everyone's lips. You've got that. You need that level of authority to also then have the right discussions with government. If you don't have the gorilla on your side, you are likely going to lose the discussion. We have lost the discussion for the last, number of years. But now we've got that gorilla. We've got Larry Fink and the team on our, like, theoretically on our side, regardless if it's direct exposure or not. But they have that financial interest now in place. So if we share that common financial and technological interest of moving this movement forward, now we've got a significant partner, if you want to call it a partner, but we've got that significant weight on our side to make sure that the right doors, the right influence is created at government level. But it's then we go into an interesting. There will always be this jostle, right? No government. I don't think governments are going to let this happen easily because the old saying is power corrupts, beautifully and perfectly. I don't think there's going to be many examples of governments that are just going to say, brilliant, fantastic, let's adopt this. It's not going to happen that way, because they are in control. And, obviously I'm going to watch what I say, because I don't want to be, come across as an anarchist and along those lines. But they are in control, and they're not going to relinquish that control easily. Why would they? They're regardless of their agenda. Maybe it's also a high level of naivety or misunderstanding. I mean, you still got these world famous economists, quoting or comparing it to the tulip bubble, the phenomena. And you sit there going, like, I approach Bitcoin purely from, not necessarily only, but purely from an economist point of view, right? The new principles of economics. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to differentiate the two, between what is this absolute scarce item that is highly portable, that is divisible, that is durable, all these qualities that has, defined what currency and store of value and all these sort of things have taken shape, and what the market needs. It doesn't take a genius to say, but a tulip isn't that. A tulip is not divisible. A tulip is not durable. You keep a tulip. I mean, it's at the nut. So I always go back to the point is, either they are highly incompetent and questionable, their IQ is questionable, or there's an agenda behind it, or they're being told or paid to say something, or push a certain narrative that that fuels an agenda of someone, or some entity. So we haven't won the battle yet, and I don't think like whenever this happens and we either get approved or denied or delayed or whatever the story, we haven't won the battle yet. It's not a matter of all of us being completely self-sovereign now. It's not going to be that issue. There's still a number of things that we need to go through.
But it's a big milestone. I think it's actually a big milestone, the ETF, as you said. We had I think one of the major milestones is obviously like the Genesis block and stuff like that, and the first pizza transaction where Bitcoin got a market. But then moving on, it was like maybe Michael Saylor was a big moment, the first public company, a publicly traded company that bought Bitcoin. El Salvador was also a big step, like the first nation state to having a president to embrace Bitcoin in the way he did. That was a major milestone. And I think like the milestone just got way bigger. Like publicly traded company brought so many more publicly traded companies. Like I think there are like 80 or something now. From 2020 there was only one, the first one, and now nation states, and there are talks with other nation states and like with Argentina and more nation state. They're flirting with it, and they are getting more pro Bitcoin. And now with the ETF, it's a whole new ball game. It's sometimes people say, oh, but we have spot ETFs, we have different, like people can get exposure to Bitcoin other ways, but people don't realize how much capital and eyeballs this is unlocking. Like it's staggering. Like if only BlackRock invests like 1% of their capital, if only BlackRock is it, like it's the daily buy volume will triple easily. Like I was having a podcast, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were calculating the numbers, and it was so easily tripling the daily buy volume. And then we also have the halving year, the same year, which is beautiful to have in the same year. So like it's an amazing step. What do you think?
And interest rates are likely going to drop, and the printing machine is switched on at some point. I think it's ultimately it's a perfect storm that we're facing, which I've never been, and this is probably my second or third cycle. I've never been more bullish than I am right now because of all of these factors that are perfectly aligned. Like, okay, let's first get through the first hurdle and all that kind of stuff. But it is a very exciting time to be in Bitcoin, extremely exciting. And I for one, and I'm sure you're probably the same as me, I can't shut up about it. I talk about it 24/7. I am living and I'm breathing and I'm, developing content, and anyone that will listen, I'm talking about it. I tweeted about this, but it's not a joke. This actually happened to me. I was invited to a New Year's Eve party on a prerequisite, on a one term that I wouldn't talk about Bitcoin. So I was like, Yeah, enjoy your evening. Because there's no way. I mean, for me, it's not talking about Bitcoin per se. It's not about, the coin value or the technology. Bitcoin touches on every facet of our lives. It touches on our social dynamics. It touches on our economic dynamics, our financial dynamics. It talks about equality. It talks about a social movement that is so much more powerful than it is just a financial, vehicle. It is about, at the end of the day, it's about freedom. And the more we have these players like Lagarde and these central, quite nefarious entities, sitting in the EU, various different departments, and they're talking about CBDCs, and they're talking about these very evil, in my opinion, potential evil weapons that can be used to control an agenda from a central force. There is this dystopian fear that I think that everyone has. We can go either way, right? We've always been in that scenario. I think in society, we've always been on this edge of ultimate doom and gloom. The hour clock is pointing at 12, and we're always thinking, is it going to end and all that stuff. But I think we're in a different situation now because we have the technology that can actually provide means to control a mass population. And Bitcoin is the opt-out of that. It is for me, again, like I talk about it when I get so excited about these things, because it's not only about a financial and economic movement that's happening, but it is, at the end of the day, our option of salvation. It is that.
You wrote in one tweet, I loved it so much, that if you short Bitcoin, you short humanity.
100%. You're 100%. That you're not in the Bitcoin game there. If you're shorting it, you're degen, and you're trading it, and you're looking at it selfish means for a fiat purpose, right? And look, I'm not a smart enough trader, and I don't trade for the record, and I don't do leverage and all that kind of stuff. But if you short Bitcoin, you are going to eventually get knocked out. But philosophically, you are shorting our potential to have a thriving, utopian future, or whatever that looks like, returning to a hard currency. So I don't respect anyone who shorts, we don't have to talk about the most famous one in the market. But I don't respect anyone who shorts Bitcoin, because that is the most selfish thing that you can possibly do right now. It's the most selfish thing that you can do.
Will it ever be too late to learn about Bitcoin? Like is there a stage where it's gonna be too late for people?
No, because I ask you, is it today? Is it too late to learn about fiat? Is it too late to learn about what money is? No, it's not, right? I went down this rabbit hole. I was fortunate to get in early, but I only started becoming a proper student of Bitcoin in the last 2 years, 3 years. So I've read now several books. I'm 40, turning 43 soon. I'm not a young person anymore. I'm still a student though. It's never too late to learn. I use my parents as a sounding board, because if I can appeal, and if they can understand what I'm talking about, and they like hearing what obviously maybe it's biased, but if they understand what I'm talking about, and they are now all singing the song of the importance of why Bitcoin needs to be saved, not saved, but it needs to become a forward topic in any household. They're in their 70s and 80s. It's never too late to learn. So I think the more the movement gathers momentum, and these ETFs will expedite that willingness and openness to learn, the more people like you and me, and of course we're not at the same scale like Bitcoin Archive. You're talking about 1.4 million followers or something, but there are massive accounts out there. I think, okay, so let's go back to for me, there is mining first and foremost, right? Transaction verification and everything else, and block security. Then there is actually buying and storing Bitcoin. Those are two most important proponents of Bitcoin. The third proponent, which is what I'm trying to spend most of my time doing, because I'm not a miner yet, and I might potentially do that, and I'm a holder, right? So that's okay. But the third most important component of Bitcoin is education. It is. It's 100% education, and it's a really fun topic. Well, I find it fun, and I think people when I do talk to them, their eyes light up because I'm excited about what I'm talking about. It is a very fun topic because again, it's not a financial, it's not only a financial accounting best practices and all that kind of stuff. When you're looking at numbers, sure you can look at it from number perspective, but it's not. It's really about, again, the societal impact, prosperity that the individual will be able to maintain when they go down this Bitcoin rabbit hole. So no, to answer your question, it's definitely not too late to learn. It will never even be too late to buy. The old saying again is, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. And I just think that we're so early. We are so early. It's so early. It's never going to stop going up eventually. There will be cycles. And are we entering a super cycle right now? Likely. But it's an exciting space to be in. And it is really something like, that gives me purpose. And I'm pretty happy that I've come across this because, I've never felt like I've had more purpose in my life. I wake up and I go, this is it.
Yeah, you also wrote that in your bio that you have the goal to orange pill 1,000 people. Like, maybe to start
Yeah.
with, how did you get orange pilled?
Yeah, it's a great question. I even remember when I first heard about it. And I even remember the road that I was driving in. It was in 2010. And I heard it on the radio and they were talking about it on the radio and I was like, okay, what is this all about? But it never really, it never really became it wasn't a significant important factor in my life. I had still yet a lot of things in a professional sense to achieve. And I lived all around the world. I traveled, I stayed in Asia for about 10 years. And in 2017, I was working with a colleague, and he, actually, our company was founded by a fairly well-known individual in the crypto and Bitcoin space, Vinny Lingham. I don't know if you know Vinny Lingham, but he's also quite a large influence in the market, and a hell of a smart guy. And he started our company many years back, and he's exited, subsequently. But he was a very early adopter of Bitcoin and crypto, and he was quite influential with me. I followed all of his posts and I started getting a better understanding of what he was talking about. He was always an early trend spotter. So he was very important in me learning or being introduced to Bitcoin initially. And initially in 2017, I looked at it purely from a speculative, or at that time it was about $600 or something. And I thought, okay, let me put some money down and see where it goes with it. And I remember the various different exchanges, even in 2017 in Asia. It wasn't easy to get. We had to go to a number of different weird and wonderful, exchanges, and eventually move things over to a hardware wallet. But that was when my journey started, and I went through this whole kind of iteration of, then Ethereum, the fork, obviously happened, and we were talking about that for a while, and then that spurred a horrible movement, the ICO movement, the initial coin offering movement, and the scams came with that, and the flood of fraudulent activity came around that. And that's when I started thinking, this is just like, surely this is just printing money, right? So all these guys are just developing these tokens and these initial coin offerings and stuff, and they're just printing money. It's not solving any world issues. And I've always been kind of like a romantic idealist in a sense, where I want to make the world a better place for everyone and obviously future generations. But every career that I've had, I've always had that drive to leave the world in a better place, leave my environment better than when I started out in it. And I didn't really see the ICO movement having any benefit for the average person on the street. I thought this is purely just a money grab. But anyway, there might be some money to be made, so I didn't really take it that seriously. And then a few years later, and I was always still in Bitcoin. I was early investor, holder. But it was always back of my mind that I thought I had to do other things. And I did. I was working with a really large bank in Asia, Standard Chartered Bank. And I was working across about 16 different markets. And it was great and crazy time and all that stuff. But at the bank, I was learning some interesting lessons about banking and finance and credit. And, because we were selling credit cards and personal loans and stuff, right? So we were selling short-term credit facilities. The bank strategy was obviously to talk to or tap into and target emerging markets. Emerging markets are, high demand for credit, but then that introduces a certain level of risk. That didn't pan out necessarily too well for the bank. I think it was in 2017 or so. The bank went through a little bit of a hiccup, but that was also broadly related to a wider financial crisis. And that's when I started to get a better, sense of what I need to do with my life and my career. And it wasn't about offering credit, short-term credit that might be detrimental to the family household. It was something that wasn't feeding my soul. And I needed to find what that was. And I went down this whole ecological route, and I still do to a degree of conservation and recycling and all that stuff. And living in Asia is it's pretty daunting because of the one-time packaging usage, the plastic usage is incredible. So I'd sometimes walk outside my building, and there would be these 6-foot high piles of trash on the streets waiting for the collection services to come. And that sort of makes you think, there has to be a better solution to that. But then, in 2020, we went through all the similar, pandemic around the world, lockdowns happened, and then DeFi started taking shape, and then, NFT started taking shape. And I went down that path, and I decided this was a great opportunity for me to try pivot my career from a digital marketing, financial background, having worked with Google and Facebook and large banks throughout Asia. I thought, okay, let me try pivot my career into a more of a cryptocurrency environment, a more blockchain environment, because I was applying this idealistic nature of going, but not Bitcoin, but blockchain can level the playing field, right? We can offer, or smart contracting can offer a opportunity to own a piece of the internet, right? So I thought, okay, this is something I need to take seriously. And I started working in Web3 a couple of years ago. But the more I got exposure to Web3, the more my passion and love and belief system was reinforced in terms of what Bitcoin is. And it's been so easy for me to differentiate the two, split the two. Bitcoin is not crypto, in my opinion. It's not Web3. There might be a definition blur when it comes to layer 2 solutions. We can talk about that for a little bit, but Bitcoin for me is one of the greatest, most scarce assets, on the planet. There isn't an individual behind it or VCs behind it looking for exit liquidity. There was no token issued, upon initiation. You had to work for it. And for me, it's a perfect, beautiful model of converting energy into a means of stored currency and value. What other resource or what other process out there has the ability to turn energy into an immediate form of currency and value? There's not a single one that you can list that doesn't require necessarily, a value chain of middlemen along the way, extracting margins and extracting, and I talk about extracting value because it's definitely not contributing value. They just, siphoning off all that value that is created in this chain. So I have pretty much come to the conclusion that it is Bitcoin or none. It needs to resonate. It needs to basically, percolate with most young minds. And I believe that Bitcoin is going to be taught in universities, and it's going to be taught in schools. And the sooner we learn about these fundamentals or new principles of economics, the better. New principles of technology, the better. And yeah, I do believe that it's going to be an exciting future. And I thank my lucky stars, and I'm sure everyone else thanks their lucky stars that Bitcoin was invented, because we would not be in the situation today if it wasn't the case. If Satoshi did not invent this, during the 2007 crisis, 2008 financial crisis, we would be in a very, very, very desperate situation right now. We would be very, very, it would be scary. I would not want to be on this planet, right?
Yeah, it's a hard question. Like, what would we do right now without Bitcoin? I mean, I did before Bitcoin a lot of stock investing. Like, I spent my days from basically 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Researching about stocks, and I did really great actually. But it's a work. It's not a savings device. It's an actual a side hustle. It's a job. It's something you do. Investing is not saving and storing energy. It's an actual job. And so I have no clue, because gold, of course, gold is an amazing store of value. It has an amazing history, but I don't know if I would invest my money or save my money in gold if there was no Bitcoin. Like, it's a hard question for me, actually. What would I do without Bitcoin, or would I even think about that question right now? Because a lot of things opened my like Bitcoin
Yeah.
opened a lot of
Yeah.
questions and topics for me.
Yeah.
So I never questioned what is money before Bitcoin. And
Right. Right.
I was a big stock investor, a really big one.
Yeah.
I made huge gains, and I did never ever question what is money actually. And
Yeah.
this scares me. Like, what I mean, luckily we have it, but
Mm.
what if we don't have it?
Yeah, but that is why the matrix, the matrix memes and matrix comparison is so important. I'm exactly like you. The second you go down this rabbit hole, you really do start to become enlightened to a degree. You start to become hypersensitive towards all of these macro and micro nuanced challenges that we face in society. And we would have never been asking these questions if we didn't have this option of Bitcoin and education around it. We would all be sitting with our blinkers on, and we would just take it. We would just accept that this is the norm, this is the reality that's been provided. And yeah, I mean, thank God it's a life raft that we've got. And it's our job to basically make sure that everyone understands that there are options out there. But it's terrifying at the same time, because the more we realize how bad the situation is, right? There's a borderline there between becoming an obsessive conspiracy theorist, right? And I am probably a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. I believe that there are certain things that are not very kosher and are against us. But the more I understand about what situation we're facing, the more I actually grow terrified for organizations, companies, and countries who are not planning accordingly. Like, if your company is not optimizing to include at some point in the near future to either have Bitcoin on your asset balance book, your balance sheet, or accept Bitcoin as a means of exchange, you are ultimately working towards zero, because the currency that you're accepting, regardless of your local currency, is all backed by something like a dollar or a gold reserve, or not even a gold reserve, but like a dollar or some sort of GDP metric that is rubbish, because it's not measuring a lot of informal sectors and stuff. It is dangerous for an organization. Maybe not today, maybe not this year or in the next 2 years, but it is dangerous for an organization and country, moreover, a country, not to be planning accordingly. If Bitcoin isn't a topic of discussion at board meetings and at parliamentary sessions, your country is going to be left behind. Because, like, you've got Saudi Arabia, now that it's halal, and you've got, like you said, El Salvador, you've got Honduras that has also now recently made it a legal tender. Argentina, let's see. Like, I know everyone was going on about, he's a Bitcoin president and stuff. He made one comment that he was, open to the idea and stuff. So let's see how that pans out. And yes, they have made a legal tender and stuff. Let's see how that pans out. And inflation is through the roof. The Federal Reserve Bank. Let's see how that pans out. But a country that is not planning for this accordingly is going to get dramatically and very quickly left behind. It is going to be a knee-jerk reaction, because there's one thing for me that is inevitably going to pop, and that's the USD, right? And if you look at USD reserves in most of these countries, they are heavily reliant on a USD form of assuring their local currency. And that for me is very, very dangerous.
I mean, the USD is basically the strongest and most reliable fiat currency, but I also think it will eventually just pop. So if you're not planning to have, as you said, a strategy for Bitcoin, you will lose out. And will like the time is really tricky for me, because will Fiat survive the next 50 years? Like we already went, when we take the start of 1971,
Mm,
then we already went over 50 years, and if it went
mm.
50 years, maybe we can do another 50 years. Can
Yeah.
Fiat go another 50 years, do you think?
No, no. If you look at your inflation, I mean, how much value has lost in the euro and the USD in the last 20 years, right? It's virtually 90%. How much more of that room is there to decline? In 20
Yeah.
years, 90% value loss? Nothing. There's not a lot of time there, right? We understand that. But the majority don't realize how bad inflation is, because the numbers that are being reported are wrong. I talk to a lot of locals where I'm located, and I ask them, the number that's being reported is like 0.6% inflation where I'm based. And I asked people, like, do you agree with that? And this was over Christmas. I was having a chat with a family friend, and he has his own business and stuff. And he said it was a very tough year. I think 2023 or 2022, 23 was very tough for everyone. It was a very, very difficult time of most industries. But he said flat out that inflation is out of control. It is not the number that's being reported, right? And I think it was Lynn Alden who was talking about how they measure inflation. Is if they this year they take a prime rib and they measure they mark the cost or the price. Next year they come across the same prime rib and that price is increased. They'll replace that prime rib with something else that puts inflation in line with expectation. That's misrepresentation. That's bullshit, right?
Yeah, it's like, first of all, I think, as Michael Saylor said it in the beginning so often and so good, inflation is always an individual metric, because I buy something different than you buy something, because
Yeah,
inflation is basically the things I buy, how much do they go up in price? Like that's like
yeah,
the most basic and simple explanation of
yeah,
that. So, but
yeah.
if you have a basket good of things, it should be comparable. Like I mean, not maybe like year over year for sure. Like if they change it once in like 2 decades, I can understand that, but they are changing it all over the place, and this is
Mm.
not reflecting reality, I think.
Yeah, but even, I mean, you say that it might be acceptable in a year or 2 years. Why would it even? Why should it be acceptable? Inflation is a fiat byproduct. Okay, there was no such thing as inflation before. Fiat was introduced, where they decoupled from the gold standard. There was no such thing. It was a sound economy. There was a very low unemployment. It was a sound economy. Things were working, right. 1% is theft. Even 0.5% inflation is theft from
I don't know.
the
Yeah,
average consumer.
I fully agree with you that inflation in general is theft. Like even 0.1% is bad inflation. We should have
Yeah,
deflation, because we are
yeah,
progressing as a society. So everything else as deflation would be a step backward, and we are stepping
yeah,
backward in a kind of.
yeah,
I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
if we are changing the way we are measuring inflation
Okay,
every
okay,
one
yes,
or 2 decades, that would be understandable for me.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
we are
So,
not even having massive inflation, we are also changing the metrics all the time. So
yeah,
everybody's confused and everybody's talking so much about inflation, because it's on the top of the minds of everybody.
yeah. Well, I mean, and it was now Christmas. It was the season, right? And I don't know about you, but I felt it. Like I really do. I've stopped certain behavior, or certain things that I would have historically liked to have done. I go out less. I've been a lot more prudent in my grocery shopping. Instead of taking a premium brand, maybe I'll take a mid range, or an entry level, or like a grocery label. I've made these changes in my life, and it's not something I would like. It's not how I would like to live life. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be that prudent and all that kind of stuff. I do want to have a little bit of excess and stuff, but it's hitting everyone in hard and uncomfortable ways. And it's obviously it's marginalizing a wealth gap that's making it even worse, right? And I think it was obviously expedited with COVID and the pandemics, but it's really that wealth gap is getting much more severe. So just to come back to the ETF for 1 second before I want to just talk and answer your question on how much time we have left on the whole, when will Fiat potentially pop? But the ETF for me is a vehicle to facilitate the transfer of wealth from the older generations to a newer, younger generation. Okay, so if it wasn't for an ETF, all that boomer money would sit and historically be eroded. Even if you inherited money, it would be eroded through inflation, right? Or eventual loss of power and stuff, or purchasing power. But this now provides us with an ideal opportunity, a quick, expedited vehicle to transfer this wealth from the older haves to the younger have-nots. Now, I'm technically in the millennial bracket of demographics, and I'm not alone when I say, I don't own a house. It's too bloody expensive to have kids. Pets are a better option. That's why, I've got a cat in the background. It is, and I'm not alone in this. Like, where I look at my sister, she's slightly older than me. She's got a house. She's got that. She's got all those other things. She just got in at the right time. And it was never it was always too expensive for me. And I do feel left behind, I do feel marginalized, and I do feel like the system wasn't designed for me. And I don't understand why, right? But this now gives us an opportunity to say, great, bring your money in, get exposure, and let us, the younger generations, have, accept that wealth transfer. So I think this is a good thing in that, broader sense. I'm not going to go down the whole like custodial, it's not real Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, because the ETF providers, they have to own Bitcoin, right? And it's on the blockchain and all that kind of stuff. So they do have to buy the coins. They're not going to misrepresent themselves. It is also where regulation could come in to, safeguard these issues. I definitely don't think we're going to be facing another FTX issue. Like, it's not even the same ballpark. And I also think those lessons have been learned in the past. This is why there's been so many hoops that we've had to jump through to get, or eventually, hopefully, like we're talking like it's happened, but to get approval from the SEC. We've had to go through all these enormously important, stop measures to make sure that everything is absolutely straightforward and crystal clear and managed properly. So I think it's a good thing because it's going to transfer all that wealth. But let's go back to your question in terms of how much time we have left. Ultimately, if you look at the 20 years, 90% loss of value purchasing power, how much more time do we have? It comes down to a number of factors. This year, how much money is going to be printed? That is going to be a big, big question mark, right? America can no longer support war in foreign territory, but they will have to support war in foreign territory because it's the only thing currently backing the US dollar is the military force. Regardless of what America is, like if you look at it purely from what is backing the US dollar, it is the military control that they have. The second they stop doing that, that's when they start shifting. Well, we won't trade in the USD, or we won't use this as an international means of trade, right? Look at the BRIC nations. The BRIC nations are already in deep discussions. Saudi Arabia is now joining the BRIC nations in deep discussions to facilitate transaction with the yuan, right? Which is a very significant thing because now the race to the end has started. So when will it happen? I'm not going to be able to give you a timeline, but I can tell you that it's on the near horizon. And when it happens, it's going to be quick and it's going to be incredibly surprising. It's going to be a pop. And those who are left wanting, holding a bag full of paper fiat, are going to be in a very, very difficult situation. So my philosophy, why, I mean, like, yeah, okay, so I'm a single guy, I don't have kids, but I do have a niece and nephew. My calling in life is obviously to make the world a better place, but also for me to establish some sort of generational wealth where they won't have to worry about these things. They're going to have access to that at some point. And like we said, it's highly durable. So, there's no time span on this, but it's going to happen. We know that it's going to happen. And I do believe that I'm kind of maybe I'm my family's life raft. I can't expect my parents to go out and buy because they're retired. They don't have that means. I've, I do see myself as that life raft, and more than happy to be that, because I've got the ability to do so. But it is just it's not a matter of if, it's definitely a matter of when. And I think that we are all grossly underestimating how long this is going to take for it to happen. And when it happens, it's going to be a violent pop.
I agree. It will be brutal, because there's so
Yeah.
much depending on that fiat system. There's so many implications that go off of that event. So
Yeah.
it will be
Yeah.
definitely brutal. I also
One of the implications would be a bank run, right? So people are going to fear that their currency has lost all value, and then suddenly everyone's going to go and run to the bank and say, "I want my cash," and the bank is going to say, "Sorry, I don't have your cash." What do you mean I don't have my cash? No, well, it's technically not with us, and that's what scares the shit out of me,
yeah,
right? That's what's scary.
and we already see that in some countries where there are bank
Yeah,
runs, where there are the inflate, like Lebanon, where the value just drops in half overnight, where complete life savings get completely wiped out with like literally a click of a button. So we have already that kind of look in the future with the small
yeah.
window with some countries, and people think, oh no, we in the West, like America, Europe, like this will not come to us, but it will.
But it recently happened now with the Silicon Bank. It happened in the last when that happened 8 months ago or something, or maybe even more recent than that.
Yeah.
It literally happened in America. There was a bank run, and these banks could not. Even my bank that I was using at the time, I'm not going to name the name, but I was using a bank in Europe. They were backed by that bank in America. So this is not going to be an isolated case, right? So when it happens, you're going to see a massive cascading runoff effect, and it's going to create massive, panic, and it's going to create just a complete reaction in the market. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to say I'm going to sleep tight and sleep comfortable, thinking Bitcoin is going to be the answer and saves us, because we don't operate in isolation, and for a number of reasons. We don't have the means or the infrastructural means to use Bitcoin on a day to day, even if it's layer two. We don't have that. The average shop out there doesn't have a Lightning wallet integrated. The average person or business owner doesn't quite understand how to put it onto their books and what are the accounting practices behind it. There was a tweet that I had a long time ago, but it still remains relevant. There's two important timelines, right? The one is the infrastructural rollout of using it as a means of easier transaction at a mass scale, and the rollout to control and force it down or regulate it down. Those are the two most important timelines that we're looking at, I think, in my opinion. So one needs to be, how can we use it as a means of a day-to-day exchange? If you hear my accent, I'm originally from South Africa, and we have one of the biggest retailers in the country called Pick n Pay. And they introduced the Lightning Network, where you can go into Pick n Pay and you can actually use, and you can buy your groceries with Bitcoin, which is awesome. It's one of the biggest retailers in the country. They're servicing millions of people. Bitcoin is a hugely popular topic of interest in South Africa because the currency is also running to rubbish, right? But that's a real world example of a massive retail, and Pick n Pay it is large. It's probably the second or the third largest retailer in the country, servicing 45 million people. And they've introduced the Lightning Network to use it as a means of exchange. You can buy your groceries with it. That's an incredibly important movement that's happened. But again, the government there will make it as difficult as possible, because it is an opt out of the currency system. And yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, it's definitely, for me, it's we're at the right time and space. In terms of timelines, I think we're at the cutting edge of where this is going to head. And the more discussions we have like this, the more people we talk to, an orange pill, like you said, 1,000 people orange pill, and I'm doing it. Like I'm making progress. I managed to orange pill a very close family friend he's in his 50s, and I walked him through the whole process. I gave him all the due diligence, and I said, it can go either way, right? It can go up, it can go down. You are 100% aware of the financial risk that you are embarking on. He was like, absolutely not a problem. Show me how to do this. So I showed him where to get it. I even we got him a Trezor wallet, and he's like, okay. So I'm using my example. Is it too late to learn? He's in his 50s. He got the process. I explained step by step, held him through the way, held his hand through the way. Anytime he had a question, I was there available to answer it. Don't worry about this. Do it this. Make sure that you send a little bit of amount. Make sure that you double check your address. And then he got the cold wallet, and he sent it off, and he's got it in cold storage. And I think amazing. If I can do that to one person, we all need to be doing that to a couple of people. And he's in his 50s. So he's I'm not saying that's old or anything. I'm just saying, no, he's in his 60s now. So 50s, 60s. If I can do that to an older generation, it's never too late to learn. And it's our responsibility who are early adopters, who are in the educational space, to break down the complexities, map it all out. What are the risks? What are the rewards? And just be there to help all these people kind of get onto your life raft. That's our job. I would do this 24/7 if I could. I would literally do this 24/7. I'd just be talking about Bitcoin, salvation, economic principles of freedom and prosperity. What are market dynamics? What's the history that we're facing, and when was a good sound economic principles, like Austrian. You would know more about the Austrian economics than I would, but it's a fascinating journey, and it's a fascinating opportunity that we have, you and I, to educate and make sure that everyone around us, our immediate loved ones, are aware of what's going on, and it's our responsibility to help them. I believe that.
Definitely. I think Austrian economics is fun because I was in Austria, and I've lived a few years in Germany, but basically my whole life I was in living in Austria. And first I heard about Bitcoin, and then I heard Seyr and Michael Seyr and all those big guys talking about Austrian economics. And my first thought was like, what's so special about Austrian economics? Because I was living in Austria, and I was like, it's the same like in Germany. It's like the same in Swiss, basically. Like, okay, Swiss is different, but and then I learned about Austrian economics, about Hayek, about all the philosopher there, and it's a crazy journey to go there. To end the podcast, we're having an end routine where the previous guest asked a question for the next guest.
Oh, wow.
And it's always like fun. I feel like we are doing the podcast now for 5 minutes, but we're already over 50.
I enjoy the chat, but I mean, like, this is sometimes we have to keep ourselves in check, because we can talk forever about it.
Yes,
and it's a beautiful topic. I love it.
I try to keep it around 1 hour. Because I think if they see the podcast going like 150 or 2 hours, they might not click on it because it might be too long. So I will try to keep it at 1 hour. At the end, the question from the previous guest for you, the previous guest asked the question for the next guest, but he does not know who's the next guest is. And the question is, they say you can't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you. As Bitcoin transforms more and more minds going forward, how do you see societies differ from now in the decades to come?
It's a good question, but it also depends on how successful we are, right? I think, like I said, I think we're at a crossroads, a very important crossroads. I think that if we go down this whole dystopic CBDC route and those politicians get their way, I don't think that we're looking at a very happy future. I think we're looking at a very sinister, agenda-controlled, militant, fascist world. However, if we do win and Bitcoin does become the prevalent form of a central reserve currency, and people are able to express themselves in terms of freedom and value creation and prosperity, and inflation is under control, and employment is in check because you have a hard asset, obviously it eventually, inevitably, infinitely going up. I think that we'll be able to spend our time doing things that we way more enjoy. I think we'll be able to outsource a lot of the mundane to AI and the rest of the stuff. And I think we'll be able to express ourselves much more easily in a creative sense, educational sense. I think a lot of people are going to go down an educational path of, exploration and self-discovery. But it all depends on the next year to 2 years. And I'm playing my part. I'm playing my role in terms of education and making sure that we win. But if Bitcoin wins, when Bitcoin wins, because we need to be confident that is the battle will be won. I think that we're looking at a beautifully balanced, fair, diplomatic, and inclusive future for everyone, because Bitcoin keeps the central organizations, the central entities in check. So we can then start to collectively decide what the outcome, the best outcome for a collective purpose might be. So when that happens, we will have corruption under control or have abolished corruption in its entirety. And I think that all evil stems from that. All evil really stems from greed and fiat and corruption, right? All of it does. I think we're going to be facing a very peaceful, with war will also be something of the past, because we won't need war anymore. War is an agenda that has been fueled by a bunch of fat cat politicians that are playing a game of chess, and we are all the collateral in the middle. We have to go fight a war that we don't know the cause of it, or is it the truth? It's manipulation of information, right? That Bitcoin changes the narrative completely. Bitcoin checks it all and makes sure that everyone is kept under, obviously a quality assurance, and a central agenda is kept in check, because the decentralized mass agenda is taken into consideration, has more of a consensus view on the outcome. So when Bitcoin wins and we all play our part in it, I think that we are looking at a very prosperous future for everyone, and it's going to be great. I'm fairly positive about what that happens, but we haven't won it yet. There are a number of obstacles that we need to go through first. We need to get this complete warmongering under control. It's just getting out of sync with normality and logics. But I mean, I hope you answered your question there to a degree. But I do think we're looking at a very positive future when Bitcoin wins.
It's a beautiful answer and a beautiful way to end the podcast. Where can people find you best to get in contact with you, ask you questions, get your feedback?
Yeah, look, I mean, Twitter is always a weird one because DMs are full of scammers, right? So they're more than happy to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of educational posts on LinkedIn, longer posts on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, the LinkedIn algorithm doesn't always work in your favor because of maybe they don't like the Bitcoin content on there because it's more of a sinister background. But more than happy to connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter or X. Yeah, I mean, I do have an Austria also account, but I'm more active on X these days, just because that's where the conversation is taking place and it's more rapidly evolving. But yeah, it's probably the best two forums is obviously on X and LinkedIn.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful discussion, and yeah, I look forward to listening and watching the podcast when it's published.